How's it going today, guys? Today I'm going to finally be teaching you guys how to use Sirius XM fish mapping to help you guys find and catch more fish. So with that being said, if you're not subscribed, be sure to do yourself a favor by hitting that subscribe button, and if you haven't smashed the like button on this video, be sure and smash it. That way it helps get out to more people. And that being said, let's start this tutorial. So the first thing I want to talk about is the features Sirius XM has to offer you. So when you buy the fish mapping service, so it's $109.99 a month, so about $110 a month, but then there's also all the taxes on it, and you know how that stuff works is they even charge you tax on top of tax, which is pretty crazy. When you think you can't get taxed enough, they find another way. Anyways, so it ends up becoming around like $135, $140-ish. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's not $110, it's $110 the service, and then there's all the taxes, and it comes out to like $130, $140-ish. So that's just so you know going into it how much it would cost. Also, something to know is that you don't have to have it subscribed all year. So let's say, for example, let's say you fish like New Jersey area, Massachusetts, and you know, let's say you're just a summer guy, you fish the summer. So let's just say you want to fish June, July, August, and September. So you want to do 4 months, or you want to do 6 months, or if you want to do like, let's say example, like you want to do like June, July, August, and then you want to do like in the winter, like November, December, January, or whatever it is. Like you can mix it up however you want. Whenever you think you're going to be using the service, you can pay for it for those months that you plan to be using it, and then you can turn it off when you don't plan to be using it. That way you save the money, or you can just leave it on auto renewal and it'll just renew every month. But what are you getting with that service? You're basically getting a couple cool features to help you find fish. Obviously, something important I want to point out before we get into that is to make sure you have the required hardware for your unit, depending on your brand. It's compatible with FURUNO, Garmin, RAYMARINE, and SIMRAD, which is also encompasses LOWRANCE and B&G. Be sure and check out the links down below that I have for you to find the right hardware for your unit to be able to have Sirius XM fish mapping on your unit. Another thing is I want to tell you guys about that subscription. When you pay for that subscription, you can also view it on your phone. It's nice how you can view it on your phone, because there's a couple extra features that we're going to talk about. So with that being said, let's start talking about some of the features. One of the most appreciated features by Sirius XM fish mapping is their recommended fishing areas. And now before I get into all these details, I do want to mention that at 5 a.m. every day, almost everything gets updated. So basically, the fish mapping recommended areas is Tuesdays and Fridays at 5 a.m. they get updated. Weed lines update once a day at 5 a.m. Same thing with sea surface height anomaly, subsea surface temperature, plankton concentrations and plankton fronts, sea surface temperature fronts. And the only thing that doesn't is the sea surface temperature, which gets updated every 3 hours. So basically 8 times in a 24-hour period. That's pretty nice, and we'll get into details on that just very shortly. Anyways, another thing I do want to let you guys know is that on these display brands, I know Garmin, you can only have one setting on at a time, whereas with SIMRAD you can overlay the settings. So you could have, like, say for example, if you want to do like sea surface temperature, subsea surface temperature, like 30-meter subsurface sea temperature, plankton fronts, so you can overlay. You can mix and match all these and you can see all these different features that it has to offer. You can like plan out and make your own little guesses, like where you think fish would be. So the first thing I want to talk about is probably the feature that people appreciate the most. Once again, it's the recommended fishing areas. This is good for pelagic species like marlin, sailfish, tuna, mahi, kingfish, wahoo. You put in the species you want to target, and it's going to give you a recommended fishing area that basically it's like where oceanographers, they see all these different things come together on the map, they circle an area and say, all right, this, given these temperatures and plankton concentrations and upwellings or downwellings or whatever, this is where you're most likely to catch this fish in this area. They circle on the map, and there's different colors. You'll be able to see it once you turn it on your fish mapping. So that's really nice, just because, you know, if you just want to don't think about all these other things and just say, okay, where can I go to catch, let's say, mahi-mahi. You put in the mahi-mahi, you see that little area that's circled, and you say, okay, this is, out of all the other water around it, scientifically, this is the area that my chance is the highest at catching a mahi-mahi. Now, obviously, if you want to have your own game plan, like you have your own little things you want to look for, you can do that. Like, let's say, example, weed lines and stuff like that. You'll be able to see the weed lines on there and go from there with that. Anyways, that brings us to our next feature. That's going to be the weed lines. This is updated every day at 5 a.m. once again. And basically, the nice thing about weed lines is that we all know, first thing we all think of when we think of weed lines is mahi, because lots of bait fish hide under the weed lines. You know, it gives them protection. It's a floating shelter offshore. You know, sometimes you can see these weed lines and they're really long. Sometimes they're small. You know, it just depends on the day. Sometimes you go up to a weed line, there'll be tons of mahi. Sometimes you go up to them and there'll just be some triple tail on them. And sometimes there'll just be actually nothing on them. So it all depends. Keep in mind, weed lines do sink. So just because you see a weed line on there doesn't mean it's going to be there. So what you can do is, if you have the app, like I had mentioned, is you can look on your app, and the app, 2 extra features come on the app that you don't get to use on your screen. And that is past data. So you can look at data from previous days. So let's say, like, you want to see how the sea conditions were and stuff like that 2 days ago, and you can look at it how it is now currently. So you can compare current data with past data, and it also gives you the current. So back to what I was saying about the weed lines, you can see which way the currents are pushing. And let's say you're fishing out of Miami on the east coast of Florida, and let's say you see a weed line about, let's say, 20 miles offshore, just as an example. You see that weed line, it just got updated at 5 a.m. You're running out, and you know, what you could do is start in that area and work north in the direction of the current, because normally there, current is pushing north. Obviously different days depends, but I'm just saying as an example, let's say the current is pushing north in that area. So you can probably say, okay, the current is, just an example, is pushing at 2 knots, and it's 8 a.m. currently. So that weed line might have moved, you know, maybe 5 or 6 miles from there. So, you know, if you find a good area and you want to say, okay, I'm going to start here where I think the weed line is, and then I'm going to work my way down. Or you can start where the weed line was this morning and work your way up and try to find the weed line. Just to help you find the weed line. It's not going to be like 100% accurate, but it's just giving you a general idea to know about, like, where to start looking for the weed lines. So that's what's nice about it, is that it does that. That's updated every morning at 5 a.m. Another thing that a lot of people will really appreciate it, especially the guys that are looking for the big tuna and, you know, big marlin and stuff like that, is sea surface height anomaly. So basically what that is it tells you how much depending in inches or centimeters, depending how you have your unit set up, tells you how much the surface of the water, like the height of the water, has changed in the last 24 hours. That's updated every morning at 5 a.m. And that's going to help you find 2 things. That's going to help you find eddies, and it's also going to help you find what is called convergent zones, which is might be between an upwelling and a downwelling. Just so you know, upwelling is pushing nutrients up. Those are areas you want to generally try to fish. So that's going to be a negative number on the sea surface height anomaly. So it might be negative, let's say 5 inches. That's an upwelling. You'll see a little circle. That's an upwelling. Those are areas that are nutrient rich. Downwellings are going to be a positive number, so greater positive numbers you're going to want to try to avoid. And basically, it's a downwelling, nutrients is going down. So think of upwelling, nutrients being pushed up to the surface. Nutrients means bait, bait means big fish. Downwelling, nutrients getting pushed down, and then obviously, these depths of the ocean where you're going to be finding these and using these eddies might be a few thousand feet in some areas. So you're not going to be fishing for marlin on the bottom and let's say 3,000 feet of water at 1,000 foot. You're going to be looking for stuff on top. You want to see life on top, so that way you can find birds and bait fish or whatever, troll around those and catch your target species. Anyways, when you're looking at sea surface height anomalies, what you want to look for is that zone between them. So let's say you have an upwelling and a downwelling. An upwelling is better to fish than a downwelling. Don't go to a downwelling. You might catch nothing all day. So what you want to do is where you see the positive and negative numbers coming together, like where it's like, it might be like -1, 0, and +1. That little area right there is the best area to fish to try to get bites, because that's where like nutrients is coming together, stuff is coming together. That's called a convergence zone. And so basically the convergence zone is where like they're like two eddies are converging, you could say, literally. So that is going to be the best area to fish, is that convergence zone, because nutrients are going to be being pushed towards there. So that's where you want to try to fish. So if you could do like a scale, you could do like downwellings, avoid, upwellings, good. But what you want to find ideally for the best bite is that convergence zone. That's going to be giving you the best chance at getting a bite. So I know a lot of guys here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, the guys that are really serious about going out far and getting big swordfish. That's another fishing recommendation, is swordfish, yellowfin tuna, and stuff like that, is that they'll look for those upwellings and those downwellings and look for that convergence zone. And they'll run 100, 150, 200 miles to go to that zone and fish that, just because they know that's going to be their best bet at catching one of those trophy fish. So that brings us to our next part, which is sea surface temperature. This is a really nice tool, especially if you're doing kingfish tournaments or sailfish tournaments, where you know these fish can be really temperature dependent, especially kingfish and sailfish. Nice thing about this is the sea surface temperature is getting updated every 3 hours. Let's say you start, it gets updated every 3 hours. So you can go from like 5 a.m. Next update's gonna be at 8 a.m. So what you can do, example, say you're fishing a tournament. Let's say you're fishing a tournament and lines is at 7. So you can go to like that temperature break, because that's what you want to look for, is that difference in temperature. That's normally what I would look for, the difference in temperature, because that's going to mean that there's more likely there's going to be more bait there and stuff like that. Now keep in mind, you can overlay these with other features and help you find a better area. But I'm just saying, find like a temperature break, 7 a.m. fish that, 8 a.m. when that updates again, because it updates every 3 hours, look around, is there still temperature break in that area? Is there one close by or whatever? And then you can run to wherever you think is going to be better, because it's updated every 3 hours. So then you can fish from 8 o'clock there. You might take some time to run, but let's say you get there like 8:30 in the morning from your other spot. You can fish there 2.5 hours, find another spot, go to that spot, and you can run and gun and find the most ideal areas where you're most likely to get bit. So that's what's really nice about sea surface temperatures. There's also 30-meter subsurface temperature, which is about 30 meters is about 100 foot of water. I believe it's a little bit less than that, but figure about 100 feet of water. Basically what that is just giving you water temperature below the surface, about 100 feet deep. And that's nice because, you know, fish don't stay on top of the water all day long. They go down, the water is cooler down there, obviously. And, you know, in the summer when the water is scorching hot, especially on the Gulf Coast, you know, fish are going to be going down where they're going to be, where the water is cooler, 30 meters below the surface. That's updated every morning at 5 a.m. so you can see those temperatures. Another thing is, I wanted to point out, is that you have sea surface temperature fronts. And that basically tells you the front of like sea surface temperatures. So this goes from a scale of 1 to 4. 4 is obviously the best. And those fronts are an ideal way to find great areas to fish for like kingfish and other fish as well. Like kingfish and sailfish are the things I think of the most when I'm thinking about tournaments, fishing temperatures and stuff like that. But that's going to show you the front of how it's being pushed, and that's going to, those fronts are going to be, typically those are going to be higher in nutrients. Now, an ideal thing to do with this is to combine it with the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is a plankton front strength. There's the plankton front strength and there's plankton concentration. So if you can combine a high plankton front strength, you know, one that has a high plankton concentration, you can switch over to where you'll see the concentration of plankton in that area. But if you find like a 4 or a 3 for plankton concentration and the same for a sea surface temperature front, combine those, that's probably going to be a great area for you to find bait fish, because plankton is what bait fish feed on. Bait fish are eaten by bigger fish, which might be like a bonita or something, and that bonita is going to be getting eaten by that marlin you're chasing. So if you can combine those two things and find that area, that's great. Both of those are updated every morning at 5 a.m. So as you're leaving the dock, you can find that that area. Preferably, you want to have that area before you go out. You don't want to just go out and then find it. So find it as you're going out or right before you leave the dock. Find that area and go ahead and fish there. And then obviously take advantage of the other features as well. Definitely don't count them out. But anyways, like I was saying, plankton front strength is a really important thing. It's a really nice feature to combine with sea surface temperature front strength. And there's also plankton concentration. That's basically going to tell you how concentrated the plankton is in that area. So let's say, the example, you have an area of plankton, and let's say like everywhere there's a little bit of plankton, but that one little area has going to have more concentration. That might not be a bad idea to fish, because more plankton is going to bring more bait fish, which is going to bring even bigger fish, which might be the predatory fish or bait fish that your predatory fish are going to feed off of. So that's basically a quick rundown of how to use Sirius XM fish mapping. We talked about the recommended fishing areas, sea surface temperature front strengths, 30-meter sea surface temperature front strength, sea surface temperatures, sub-sea surface temperatures, 30-meter sub-sea surface temperatures, say that 5 times fast, plankton concentrations, and plankton front strengths, and along with the app, how the app can show you currents along with past data. That way you can compare today's data with the data from a few days ago. You can form your own fishing philosophy and find out where the fish are going to be. With that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and smash the like button on this video. And with that being said, let me know if you guys have any comments down below. I'd be glad to answer any questions or anything like that. Let me know what you guys think of this video. And with that being said, signing off until next time.